All right. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Carton Show. Great to have you here on this Thursday morning. That guy right there is David Jacoby. Of course, my man here to my left is Super Bowl champion Willie Cologne, and in about an hour or so, Plaxico Burress will join us as well. Obviously not the same type of show that we would normally start you off with all the pomp and circumstance and fun and having a good time because we are in mourning here in the sports world as a little slice of Americana was taken away from us yesterday, as you all know by now, as Kansas City celebrated their third Super Bowl win with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You see the video there on the screen. America was robbed of that by the senseless act of violence in Kansas City during that parade. As we now find out that one young woman lost her life in the shooting. 20 more people were injured, 8 or 9 of them in critical condition. Many of the people wounded at the parade yesterday were children under the age of 16. Some as young as 6 and 7 years old are hurt in the shooting. And another senseless act of violence. And with that also, we got to see American heroism at its very best as well. As you have now all seen the video of a couple random guys trying to enjoy the parade in Kansas City, tackling the alleged gunman, or one of the alleged gunmen, as you see right there, while the man's wife also picks up what looks like a rifle and throws it to the side. And these are selfless acts of heroism. But sadly, what's become an all too familiar refrain in this country, whether it be shootings at schools, shootings at concerts, shooting at other mass gatherings of happy times and celebrations, gets marred by the disgusting actions of a number of people, or sometimes a lone gunman. And we still to this moment do not know who the alleged shooters are, why they were there, what they were doing, and what their goal was at the parade yesterday. But obviously thoughts and prayers and all the things that come along with that go out to the entire Kansas City community and to the Chiefs community and all those people, about 1 million people, who thought they were going to go enjoy in beautiful weather, another celebration of a Super Bowl champion. And towards the end of that parade, you know, the all too familiar video of men, women, and children running for their lives while gunshots rang out.
Yeah, listen, it's obviously unfortunate. I think for me, you know, first thing that comes to mind, there's no more sacred ground, right?
Sure.
Like, we're all sports fans and fathers. Like, who wouldn't want to go to a parade to celebrate your team, celebrate the party with your city, especially with your, you know, I have a young baby boy, to have him on shoulders now, thinking with the intention to go to a parade, and now we're running out of the parade, something for such a careless act. So it's my heart breaks for this, man, because Kansas City did everything right this year, right? This was about a team who, by all accounts, wasn't their best this year, but rallied in the playoffs and did the big thing in the Super Bowl by bringing home the Lombardi. And this city should be wrapping its arms around Patrick Mahomes and his team. But yet now we're on our knees praying for those, obviously, the one we've lost. So it's unfortunate.
It's all too familiar of a sight. This is the 48th incident just this calendar year that involves 4 or more victims of a shooting, which is an insane number to even contemplate. Yep. It seems like it happens every day, multiple times a day. And this should be a day of celebration, should be a time of getting together all on the same page, saluting the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory. And instead it ends like this, which is just, it's all too familiar.
Travis Kelce, obviously totally inebriated yesterday. We saw that. But at some point here, someone associated with him put out a tweet yesterday. Right there, that's Travis, heartbroken over the tragedy that took place yesterday. My heart's with all who came out to celebrate with us and have been affected. Kansas City, you mean the world to me. Obviously, the leader of the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, very simple, praying for Kansas City. Brittany Mahomes made an interesting point yesterday. I will acknowledge that as well, which was, you know, this has forever changed how cities can plan to celebrate, you know, a team winning. And it's not about the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously. It's about the people of Kansas City who thought they were going to go out there. You know, the gentleman that tackled the alleged shooter, you know, took his kids out of school. They played hooky, right? Mom and dad do something cool for the kids. Take them out to a parade. Let's enjoy it. They drove all the way from Wichita, which is like a 10-hour drive, to where the parade was, and to find themselves smack dab in the center of it. On a personal note, obviously, our colleagues, first things first, were at the parade yesterday. I did a text with Nick Wright, and and they're thankfully all okay. And we'll be back on the air today. But you start taking stock of, first and foremost, do I have a connection to anybody there? Because you worry about the people in your lives. And then me, like the rest of you, I'm sure, sat on the couch and watched the coverage of it, heartbroken. We live in New York City. We've had our share, obviously, of terrible tragedies and a significant loss of life. And when you sit there and you watch what is supposed to be a little slice of Americana that can't be robbed from us, it gets robbed from us on the heels of 1, 2, maybe 3 different guys deciding that today was the day that they wanted to become famous. It's disgusting. It's sick. We're not going to have gun control conversations on the show or anything like that. But the hope, though, is that we also don't fall prey to these senseless acts of violence and we continue on with the quote-unquote American way. And one guy that is the guy that tackled the alleged gunman had an interesting quote afterwards. And he said, I was racking that dude's ribs up best I could. He goes, it's called America. Yeah. And that's what I was doing. And that is a hero. And that guy should be celebrated because his act of heroism, by all means, saved who knows how many lives out there yesterday. We will do our show, obviously, the way we do it. We will, throughout the day, talk about what happened yesterday. If there are any news updates on what happened yesterday, we will bring them to you, and that will take over anything else that we are talking about today. But we'll take a very quick break, and we'll continue on. And we appreciate those of you that are with us this morning here on FS1. It is The Carton Show. Welcome back to The Carton Show. A couple of things before we get more into the sports aspect of the show. I just want to acknowledge that the one young woman who unfortunately lost her life in the shooting yesterday is Lisa Lopez Galvin. She was a radio host at a KKFI radio station. She's being mourned, of course, by her colleagues. She's also a mother of 2. She is, as of right now, the only person that did lose their life. But there are 8 other people who were in life-threatening conditions at local hospitals in Kansas City. The Kansas City Chiefs put out a statement immediately. We're truly saddened by the senseless act of violence that occurred outside Union Station. That's that main train station you saw a lot of the police officers running to as shots rang out. At the conclusion of today's parade and rally, our hearts go out to the victims, their families, and all of Kansas City. The NFL put out a statement immediately, quote, we are deeply saddened by the senseless shooting that occurred today near the end of the rally in Kansas City for the Chiefs. Our thoughts are with the victims and everyone affected and grateful for the quick and thorough response of law enforcement and emergency personnel. There is one story that's also coming out of the mayhem yesterday, and that is Andy Reid. This shooting took place at the very end of the parade and all the announcements and speeches that take place at the parade. And apparently, as the story now goes, Andy Reid and his wife wound up inside that train station, Union Station. And there were a lot of young people in that station. Many of them had been displaced from their parents and family, and they were trying to reunite. And it was Andy Reid, as the story now goes, that helped calm down a lot of these younger kids that were panicked and obviously very emotional inside that train station. And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of other acts like that, but want to acknowledge Andy Reid. And, it's moments like this also, where we all remember that, who you root for and what your fandom is completely irrelevant. At times like this. And I was reminded of that yesterday. I've had a fun banter back and forth with Chiefs fans, obviously, throughout the playoffs and leading up into the Super Bowl, which Kansas City won. But when something like this happens, it doesn't matter who you root for. Right? We're all one. We're all the same. And one of the great things I think about us as Americans and throughout our country is that we are resilient. We do, figure out ways to honor those, obviously, who made the greatest sacrifice and those who lost their lives as innocent bystanders and continue on with our way of life. And while this Super Bowl celebration will always be marred by what happened yesterday, there will be future celebrations and ones that are enjoyed in honor, of course, of those who lost their lives and were injured here yesterday. But that is one of the great things about us as a people, and that is that we will overcome this and hopefully we'll be stronger and more united as a result of what took place. Prior to the shooting, obviously a lot of people were very interested in hearing what Patrick Mahomes had to say, and Kelsey, and all the other dignitaries that were at the parade. And if you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and let me just say, as I'm saying this, I'm saying to myself, how do you transition from that to this? we have no choice. Right, we do an entertaining, 2.5-hour sports talk show here on FS1. And while we certainly could spend the entire 2.5 hours, kind of reacting to what took place, we know what happened. We will react to it. And as we get more information, we will bring that to you. But there is, unfortunately, no kind of blueprint for when do you go back and just talk sports. So we'll do the best we can in efforting that for you with no disrespect at all to the acknowledgement that people in Kansas City are suffering today and mourning based on what happened yesterday. Prior to what happened yesterday, Patrick Mahomes gave the Kansas City Chiefs fan a little kernel of what they were all hoping to hear for the Chiefs moving forward. And here's Patrick Mahomes talking about what their expectation is for next year.
And we're going for that three-piece, so don't forget it. Don't get it twisted. We're doing it. 3 times, first time in NFL history, we doing it. Love y'all.
Now, that may be alcohol infused, to be fair. And we have seen in other sports at celebrations, guys getting on the microphone. I can think of the Lakers, most specifically, saying, we're going to run it back again next year. And obviously they did when Pat Riley was there. But if you happen to be a Chiefs fan, understanding that, I can hold anybody accountable for what they say at a drunken moment in life. That's what you want to hear. And honestly, if you're every other team or fan base of every other team, you're saying to yourself, please don't.
Yeah, I mean,
come on.
You can't hold anybody accountable who has a shirt off and ski goggles on, right?
Also very true.
And so at some point, you got to give people a little grace. And this is a time for a lot of players when they getting off the float or the bus, whatever they're on. They're looking around the guys who they went to battle with, like their brothers. So there's a sense of love and like, hey man, we can take over the world. We do anything until the offseason comes, and then money starts to get into play.
Sure.
And then you start to realize that the guys
that being said, though, Willie Colon, it's kind of hard to argue with him. Like when Patrick Mahomes on January 5th texted his wife and said, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
I decided we're going to win the Super Bowl.
I made the decision, you know what, I'm going to win another one. And he did. When that dude comes out, and I know they were drunk, I get it. But when that dude comes out yesterday and goes, we're going to do it. It's never been done before. Don't get it twisted. There's going to be a three-peat. There's a part of me that goes, is he lying?
Well, what do you want me to say? Like, he'd be like, hey, I think we'll try.
Obviously, you're going to say that, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of not being a Chiefs fan.
Okay.
Like, I root for an AFC team that may have a quarterback this year. If you're Josh Allen and the Bills or their fans, you're watching. If you're the Ravens, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're San Francisco, same thing. So I'm saying to myself, I understand that you have to say it, and he was drunk when he said it.
Yeah.
But there's also a part of me that goes, I don't think he's wrong.
But I said this to you the other day. If I'm the Josh Allen,
I don't listen to you.
Obviously, if I'm the Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers of the Lamar Jackson of the world, I'm offended, right? Because here you are telling the world that we don't matter. Our efforts of how we prepare for next season don't matter because you're just going to run through us again.
I think the problem is that when he decides at any part of next season, because they'll have a couple losses and we'll come on the show and go, it's over, it's done.
They lost to the Raiders and Broncos.
He's going to wake up one day next year and he's going to say, honey, I've decided we're going to have the three-peat this year.
He said in that quote he's apologized to the Kansas City faithful and said, and next year we'll have the playoff games here at Arrowhead because they had that record.
Yeah.
And around week 12, week 13, we were saying this Chiefs team is not the same Chiefs team. We did not expect them to go back-to-back. I don't expect them to three-peat, but we learned this playoff season, don't bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Ever. Especially, but it'd be nice to know if he texted somebody that he decided.
He said,
well, I don't know Patrick Mahomes.
He said, I decided to win the Super Bowl like I decided to have Italians in it.
Yeah.
It's like so easy.
But that's the point. So, I mean, I don't bet, of course, but you can't pick against Patrick Mahomes. But it would have been nice if he had shared that text message with the rest of us. I would have known exactly what was going to happen. And I might not have put my foot in my mouth and said that Miami was going to beat them or that Buffalo was going to beat them or that Baltimore was going to beat them. Or for that matter, that San Francisco was going to run them out of the building. I may have said that 4 weeks in a row.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I may have said that. By the way, remember the video you guys were going to start this the segment with. I'm going to get to it right now. There was some good feelings yesterday in the sports world.
Sure.
And I have a kind of a personal connection because I know what it's like to lose a lot as a sports fan. There's a college basketball team. They're known as Detroit Mercy. I do not know a lot about them other than I imagine they play in Detroit. And they had gone 0-26 to start the season. Last night, Detroit Mercy got their first win,
Stormed the court.
Stormed the court.
That's you, Craig?
Well, okay, to be fair, one guy stormed the court. Now, we've seen a lot of court stormings in our day. The most recent one was the Caitlin Clark one, right? That guy is vested. That guy was like, I never lost faith in you boys.
Seems like he starts to regret it right around the logo there.
He's like, anybody with me?
Yeah, that's also the guy that apparently laid the 5 with Detroit Mercy. But no joke, they had lost 26 in a row. They were favorites last night. And that kid clearly had money. What's their mascot, you said?
Detroit Mercy Titans.
The Titans.
Yeah.
That dude had money on the Titans. But let's storm the court all by ourselves.
Yeah. You can tell he looked at anybody. Anybody with me?
Yeah, he said, we go.
It was a bad
this, right? We're storming the court.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah, that guy, if he had a girlfriend, she's like, please don't do this.
she was
please
a bad.
don't do this.
No, she
Anyhow,
doesn't have a girlfriend. I
we
promise
got
she
much
doesn't have a
more
girlfriend.
coming your way, including one of the greatest shots Steph Curry has ever made.
What?
In a career of great shots. I've got video from last night. The greatest shot Steph Curry has ever made. And now that the Dallas Cowboys have hired Mike Zimmer, are they going to regret the fact that San Francisco is going to get Rex Ryan? We'll get into that and the Cowboys defense after this.
Double.
I'm
not good at it.
Yeah, he's
not back.
Sorry, Willie. Sorry.
I'm a big NASCAR guy. Willie and I are having a NASCAR party this weekend for Daytona 500. That's right.
Big race.
People are questioning that Willie and I are big NASCAR guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Please.
Joey Logano. Big Logano guy.
Big Logano.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't
Joey
know.
Logano.
Kyle Busch still racing?
Right. Yeah. Go Bubba Wallace.
Hey, listen, we've all seen Steph Curry make crazy shots, baseline shots, turnaround jumpers from the logo, all that stuff. We've all seen some of those kind of fugazi videos in practice where, he's throwing the ball lefty backwards and righty backwards, 100 feet away. And we're like, we know that's not real, right? As good as he is, that can't be real, right? Well, last night, pregame, his warm-ups are legendary. Here's Steph Curry pregame, walking off the court into the tunnel, throws the ball backwards over his shoulder about 140 feet away from the basket, and nothing but net. What are we talking about, Jacoby?
insane.
He's a wizard. He is a wizard. This is
crazy.
This is magic. Like this doesn't feel real.
Watch it again right here, bottom left of your screen.
Oh, there
He's
he
got
goes.
the rock.
Look
You
at him,
see
look at
him there, bottom left? Watch this, over and that, boom. Like, what are we doing? And it goes in, Willie Colon.
It almost looks fake.
By the way, there is a video out there that is fake where he makes like 30 in a row in an empty gym. So we accept that that's fake. This
is real?
This couldn't be more real.
This is real. The idea that he attempts this is insulting to the human
This is not some like AI wizardry on social media.
Well, now, there are those out there that think even this has been doctored or isn't accurate.
It'd be a better
the
angle.
problem is that you've got people with their cameras out who also posted it, and I'm watching him do it.
I've been lucky enough to go to a Warriors game and seen his warm-up. It is
crazy.
Wizardry. It's absolute wizardry.
Remember when the old Powerade commercials when Michael Vick threw the ball out the stadium? That's what it feels like I just watched.
Except that was fake.
Yeah, that was fake.
Although I have seen some guys throw balls out of stadiums or try to throw a football out of a stadium. I've seen guys try that.
I thought you said you have done it.
No, I couldn't get into section 200 with this arm of mine. But I've seen other guys try to throw balls out of stadiums. Yeah, 100%. I've seen that before.
Okay.
Yeah, not all that successful, but what dude just did there, come on. You got hundreds of people watching. He's standing there, and he literally goes like this, and the ball goes in.
Ridiculous. The idea that you attempt it makes no sense.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the great Steph Curry
Good job, Steph.
for a team that was desperate to get LeBron James. Anyhow, let's get back to football. And my man Jacoby's got first in football.
We start with former Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer. He spoke about his new position as Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator, and here is what he said. It's not inspiring.
You know, and I've always been comfortable with Steven and Jerry. You know, they've been outstanding to my family, you know, ever since, you know, when I was here way back when. And so there was never a question of whether or not I wanted to be here at all.
What? Hey, that is, confidence inspiring. That's the leader of men right there. Yeah, I know Greg Jennings loves him and played for him, but that is not the type of press conference that, if I'm a Cowboy fan, makes me all moist. That's the kind of press conference that makes me go, ay, ay, ay. Well, I hope we're all in for 2025 because we ain't winning it this year.
When we talked about this position and hiring this position, we talked about it as it potentially being a Mike McCarthy replacement. Do you think Zimmer is a potential McCarthy replacement?
Well, I think anyone there's a potential replacement if things go really south for the Dallas Cowboys. And by the way, for me, there's just too much talent on that team and roster on both sides of the ball for them to go south in that manner. And by that I mean, are you really getting out to a 1-4 start next year where all of a sudden Jerry Jones knee-jerk reacts? Highly unlikely, because they do have too much talent to have that kind of start to a season. But again, you had a guy in Rex Ryan who's the antithesis of what I just saw out of Mike Zimmer. And I'm not saying those press conference indicate or even dictate whether or not you're going to be really good at your job. And this isn't like an unknown hire. Mike Zimmer has a legitimate grade A resume as a coordinator and coach in the NFL. I want to be clear about that. He is a more than competent coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. The problem is that, me included, we now live in a world where we want our hires to win the press conference. We want our guys to come out and dominate the press conference, knowing that it don't mean a damn thing as to whether or not they're going to be a good coach or coordinator or not. We've seen great press conferences turn out to be bad coaches. We've seen terrible press conferences turn out to be great coaches. So it does work both ways. But we're all looking for that edge. We're all looking for that guy that we're going to say, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But his kneecaps. Follow him in the battle. Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean Mike Zimmer's not going to be good at his job. He's a very competent coordinator. But when you juxtapose that against what you know you would have gotten yesterday or today with Rex Ryan as the hire, it's disappointing.
Yeah, but
and if I'm a Cowboy fan, I'm not going to – look, I'm not happy today. I'm not.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you have Jerry Jones to win a press conference for you, right? Nobody's ever going to pull the mic away from Jerry. I think this hire was more about a culture change because there's a reputation that came along with Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn when he was there, as they were player coaches, right? They were nice guys who were able to adapt to players, who kind of get the guys to kind of be in one accord. Mike Zimmer, and credit Greg Jennings for being here because he was on the ground and actually played.
He knows it better than we do.
More than we do, 100%. Say, like, this man is hard-nosed. He coached underneath Bill Parcells. He was there. He's an old-school-minded defensive coordinator. And I think if you look at this Dallas defense, especially towards, you said it time after time, it was always Dak Prescott walking off the field ahead. The team the side of the ball that let him down was the defensive side because of missed run fits, going rogue on the back end of the defense, not being able to get to pass rusher, not doing what they were supposed to do within the scheme of Dan Quinn's defense. So now you have a guy who's going to be a culture change. He's going to be a hard-o. He's going to hold everybody accountable. And I think that's what Jerry wanted at the end of the day. Because I think people will go play for Rex Ryan, but it's different if you know a guy who's going to hold you accountable and bust your balls.
And look, that's what I said. Mike Zimmer's a competent coach and competent coordinator. It just doesn't make me happy. Like, I'm not like going, hey, this is it. We got the right guy. That's all.
He said something interesting in that press conference. He said that he's familiar with the Jones family. And Steven and Jerry Jones, and he's been there before. And that made me think, he's comfortable to the Joneses. They know him. So they know what they're going to get from him. And I think Rex Ryan represents a little bit of an unknown, a little bit of a variable that they're 100%. Not comfortable with. So I think this is them making a safe hire, someone that's been in the building before, and not taking a chance on someone like Rex Ryan, which is my mistake, in my opinion.
When he was there, when he was running his 4-3 scheme, they had like Lavoy Glover, Dat Wynn. They had Darren Woodson. So there's an old school feel that Jerry appreciated because that's when the Cowboys were on the rise. Now I think he's looking at this team He has the talent. He has the edge rusher and Michael Parsons. Schematically, they were all over the place this year. And I think a large part of that because as much as the guys respected Dan Quinn, they didn't fear Dan Quinn. I think Jerry wants a little fear in the building, and you have that with Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, I'm a Jacoby on this one. Look, I know he was back there when Barry Switzer was the head coach, so he has old school 20-year-old ties to the Dallas Cowboys, but it's why I keep saying that Jerry Jones isn't Jerry Jones anymore. This is the safe pick. We know who this guy is. We can totally control him. Mm-hmm. He's not going to say anything stupid. He's not going to be out there and undermining Mike McCarthy publicly or privately. And to me, he's still a competent coach, but this is Jerry Jones not being Jerry Jones. That's all.
Moving on to second and football, one of the biggest questions facing the Super Bowl champion Chiefs is whether or not they will retain defensive superstar Chris Jones.
Yeah.
And Jones, maybe a little bit intoxicated, spoke about his future with the Chiefs at the parade. Here's what he had to say.
Kansas City, we will be back here next year. And for those who want Chris Jones gone, I ain't going nowhere, baby. Woo!
So right after that scream, his agent tweeted this, cut them off bartenders too much. It did hurt his negotiation a little bit and his leverage there, but do you expect the Chiefs and Chris Jones to get something done?
That comment will have zero impact on Chris Jones' ability to renegotiate a contract with Kansas City. And Chris Jones, of course, should be thanking the offensive line of the San Francisco 49ers for not blocking him on that key third down play in overtime, because basically all he did was run straight and went right into Brock Purdy because we decided collectively as a unit, let's not guard their best defensive lineman on the biggest play of the game. Look, Kansas City, obviously, you got to imagine they want him to come back, but at what number? This is a guy that was willing to sit out a month and a half. It didn't get to that, but was willing to sit out for a full month and a half, if not longer, over a contract demand and money. So I'm not sure why this would be any different this year from both sides, where Kansas City is going to have a hard line of what they're willing to pay you. And Chris Jones, rightfully so, is going to say, I'm worth more than that.
Yep.
He's going to look really at the Quinnen Williams deal as opposed to Aaron Donald's deal, because it's an older deal, as my deal needs to start where Quinnen's left off and go higher than that, because I'm an impact player at that level and better. And my gut tells me that there will be a team out there that feels like, man, if we just had another defensive lineman, we're that player away from having a kick-ass defense that can't be stopped. And I do think he's going to make a boatload of money. I think Kansas City clearly will be in the mix on it. And I understand in that moment, you play to the crowd. You got 1 million people there. You've been drinking a little bit. You're with your guys. I just won another Super Bowl. Of course I want to come back and do it again. And then Michael Katz's agent is going to say, slow your roll.
Chill out.
Zip your lip. Don't talk ever again, and let me do my job. Because there will be 3 or 4 suitors out there willing to raise the stakes of what you get paid. So go to Bahamar, play a little blackjack, have a nice time at the beach, and when I'm ready to talk to you, I'll call you. Until then, disappear. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, the bottom line, the Chiefs won't be able to three-peat unless they have that man in the building, right?
Wow.
And on top of that, you also have to worry about L'Jarius Sneed, right? Because he's up for another deal in free agency. So if you're talking about really making another run, understand that this defense was second in the league. This guy right here was a major factor. Sneed in the back end with another corner, Trent McDuffie. They led the way. So they got – listen, the Chiefs are in a good spot because they're $23 million underneath the cap. So they got money to spend.
I tell you what I'm waiting for in Kansas City, and I don't think it happens, but I'm waiting for it to happen. I'm waiting one day for the guy that signed the 10-year, $450 million contract, who has restructured. He has restructured a couple times over the course of the last few years. But I'm waiting for Patrick Mahomes' agent to come out publicly and say, my guy's underpaid. Because what are you going to say?
You can't say nothing.
You can make the case.
Like the fact that, the AAV, the annual salary for these guys, keeps going up, and Burrow and, Josh Allen and all these guys, rightfully so, Lamar, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then I'm considering, just off the story of the Dallas Cowboys, that Dak Prescott right now, and obviously they're going to restructure his deal and sign him to an extension, cost the Dallas Cowboys $59.5 million for next year alone. And I'm saying to myself, my guy's 2-5 in the postseason, and he's going to make more than Patrick Mahomes next year?
Yeah.
What'd you say, Willis? He's going to make more than Patrick Mahomes? If I'm Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure I've got good representation, you got to do something about that.
Not only do something, you'd be like, hey, here's your checkbook. I'm going to hand you your checkbook, and let's make this right. All right, let's.
Oh, that's a big number.
Right, yeah. I want this to end in all
But like,
zeros.
it's like, obviously, they all make a gazillion dollars. They all have generational wealth now, right? But it is interesting as, that class of quarterbacks that all got paid over the last year and a half, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar, all those guys that got, $200+ million. And I know he signed a 10-year, $450 million deal.
That's a lot of money.
And that was, 4 years ago when he signed that? There does come a moment where if dude's going to make 60, what am I making this year?
I think Fat Joe said it best when he said yesterday's price is not today's price.
100%.
And that's, if you're Patrick Mahomes, at the time it's a historic deal, $500 million.
Right.
He bought a piece of the Royals. At the time, we're like, wow, this is an amazing deal for an athlete. But now things have changed.
Yeah.
He is underpaid as an athlete.
Yeah, which is crazy that you have a $500 million deal, and we'd all agree he's worth more than that, right?
Not even worth more than that, but I'm also telling you, go get me a number one receiver on top of that, too. That's the bottom line.
No doubt. We got much more coming your way. I hear the Jar's coming up next.
Jar.
But there's a major change in the San Francisco coaching staff off of that Super Bowl loss. We'll walk you through that coming up as well. And if they have the right scapegoat for losing the Super Bowl. And the Jar, for the first time ever, has the exclusive, up-to-date, accepted as fact, all-time quarterback rankings in the history of the NFL.
The Jar.
Discovered at the base of a Mayan temple years ago, we have obtained a jar. A jar that has the supernatural power to make proclamations. We are now at the mercy of the Jar. The Jar is now officially open for business. Remember, all thoughts and opinions of the Jars are the Jars alone. And Fox Sports, Craig Carton, Willie Colon, and David Jacoby do not stand by anything that the Jar says.
Facts.
Okay, here we go. Are you guys ready?
Let's ride.
All right, the Jar, first one out of the jar says, all right,
Really?
the Jar
Smoking
says that MetLife Stadium, the home of the New York Jets and the New York Giants, is actually a better hockey rink than it is football stadium.
Oh, wow.
Check out this video the Jar has.
What's
This
going on?
weekend is the Winter Classic games
Oh, really?
for the NHL. There are 2 games there. You've got the Devils and Flyers on Saturday. You got the Rangers and Islanders on Sunday. That's where the Jets play football. That's where the Giants play football. And I got to tell you, that looks like a badass hockey rink.
I went to the one in City Field a couple
And
years
what a
ago.
great way to
The Winter
start a
Classic
new
is
NHL season by playing hockey in a football stadium.
Preseason.
It's not the regular season?
No, it's preseason.
And here's the
That's
reality.
not it.
They are expecting over 60,000 people to go to those games this weekend. So pretty cool.
I like
Anyhow, I always like when they change fields and courts and ice or not. Anyhow, that's the Jar.
Have you ever been?
All right. Have you ever been to MetLife? Yeah, many times.
Okay.
Or have you ever been to a hockey game?
Yeah,
Yes.
the Winter Classic.
Matter of fact, I've played on the ice at the Winter Classic.
Oh,
Really?
Yes, when they played at Yankee Stadium, I played goalie in the Mike Bossy Classic at Yankee Stadium.
Oh.
And I've been blessed to play
Give up any
hockey
goals?
at some other places as well because I play goalie.
Gotcha.
What happened?
Okay.
I gave up the game-losing goal to Mike Bossy on a breakaway.
Oh, yeah, well, you had
Yeah.
to.
Do
we have
It's
footage
his
of
game.
that?
No.
It's his game.
Real quick.
Do we have
so
footage?
Mike Bossy is one of the legendary great scorers in NHL history. He passed away, sadly, about 2 years ago, right? So there's one play he comes in, and I make the save. Now, obviously, he allowed me to make the save. And being me, I start chirping him.
Oh, God.
I'm like, yeah, Mike Bossy, my ass, that
Right.
kind of thing, right? So now it's a tie game. We're in overtime, less than a minute to go. He comes down on a fast break. Pop, pop, pop. I dive like, I'm, Ozzie Smith at short, and he hadn't shot the puck.
Oh, boy. You
And
panicked.
he just stood there and waited for me to turn around. And he goes, do you think I wasn't going to score? And that was it. Anyhow, that's that. All right, number 2. Let's go inside the
Oh, it's the
jar.
Jar say.
Okay.
All right.
What's the driver say?
All right, the Jar says, here are your official quarterback rankings of all time, since it's been a topic of conversation. And it goes like this. Number 1 of all time is Tom Brady.
Sure.
Okay, well,
Number 2 is Joe Montana, 4 for 4. Number 3 is Terry Bradshaw, 4 Super Bowls as well. The 4th greatest quarterback of all time, according to the Jar, is Dan Marino, who obviously only went to 1 Super Bowl and didn't win. The 5th best quarterback of all time is John Elway.
What is happening?
The 6th best, according to the Jar, Peyton Manning, who won with how many different teams?
2.
Thank you very much. Number 7 is the soft-armed Troy Aikman, who's got 3 Super Bowl titles.
Soft-armed.
And then Patrick Mahomes comes in as the 8th best quarterback in the history of the NFL. Do you agree with the Jar or no?
Now, what are you talking about? Like, Johnny Unitas pretty much invented the 2-minute drill, won 3 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs. Like, what do we? Johnny Unitas should be on that list.
I'm just saying what the Jar said. The
Well,
Jar,
Dan, the
Jar said
Dan Marino at 4th.
Yeah.
What is the Jar taking into consideration? What variables is the Jar considering when it comes up with this list?
Well, I think the first 3 are obvious. They've won more Super Bowls than Mahomes.
Correct.
So, again,
Then you get to 4.
We can argue it if you want, but that's where the Jar's going.
Jar shouldn't talk about
Dan
quarterback.
Marino is largely accepted as the greatest quarterback of all time, not to win a Super Bowl. But it's hard to argue that his year of 5,000 yards in like 1988 isn't the greatest single season any quarterback's ever had.
But Aikman shouldn't be on
Craig,
that
you
list.
see what
Troy
I'm defensive
Aikman's got
about
3.
the Jar's
But not
loss?
top 10.
Why do you defend the Jar?
I'm just telling you what the Jar is.
What the Jar
It sounds like you had some input
Yeah, it
on
seems
that.
like
on
the
that
Jar
list.
in lockstep.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I tell you what, maybe we'll take the Jar's take and we'll discuss it amongst ourselves a little bit later on in the program. Perhaps that's what we'll do. All right. The Jar, number 3. The Jar says there will be a minimum of 6 new playoff teams next year in the NFL playoffs.
Oh, got to do some math.
And the Jar says 4 of those 6 will be the Jaguars, who missed out this year.
No.
The New York Jets, who get Aaron Rodgers back.
Yes.
The New Orleans Saints will be division winners, it says here.
Yes.
And Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers will make the playoffs. You can pick the 2 others from that list right there.
Oh, man.
I think the Jar's onto something.
Jar's onto something.
I think the 4 the Jar's picking are dead on right. The question is, can you get 2 more out of that list?
Bengals?
That'd be tough.
Colts, maybe?
Bengals, for sure,
I'm
that's
putting in
5.
there.
Yep.
Colts may squeak in with a young
So, boom,
Anthony Richardson.
there's number 6.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back into the Jar.
Okay.
Okay.
Jar.
Jar
The
kinda
Jar
hard today.
said, I ate 9 Pop-Tarts yesterday because you tools told me that the guy that created them passed away. Totally overrated.
Right.
That's
I
the
agree
Jar.
with the Jar for once. That's the first time I've ever agreed with the Jar. Pop-Tarts.
That's,
dry.
And I don't want to hear
the
Jar
Jar.
making
Dry.
fat jokes.
Look at
Oh,
that.
Craig.
Wait a minute.
Craig, look at you.
Craig
You
is a
can't eat
Pop-Tart?
me.
Right.
You can't eat Pop-Tart
They got the
version
arms
of
right.
me.
Wait.
The Jar says Steve Wilks being fired is a smart move, not based on the Super Bowl, based on the Packers game and the Lions game alone. He deserved to be fired. If you missed it, San Francisco fired Steve Wilks, and they will replace him shortly with a new defensive coordinator.
Even with the Niners having a top 5 defense, we talked about it. There's been trouble in the water. You go back to that
Yes.
Cleveland game and that 3-game losing streak. There's always been this sense that him and Shanahan weren't never on the same page. And I think once D'Amico Ryans left that organization, this defense optically took a dip. And I think they said enough.
Yeah, great Super Bowl. It's very interesting when your last day at work is a Super Bowl and your defense played great, and then you get the call that you're fired.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the Jar. The Jar says, memo to Travis Kelce, if you want to sing a song in public, you should probably know the words to it. He apparently, at the end of the parade yesterday, was singing I've Got Friends in Low Places. Here's sound of it from yesterday. Go ahead, guys.
Travis.
Blamed it all on my roots.
Yeah.
I showed up in booze and ruined the Niners affair.
Totally sober.
The last
He's
one
got
to
them.
go.
And he's reading them.
We were
He's
the last
reading
one
them.
to show. We were the last ones they
Patrick Mahomes is holding him up physically.
There you go.
And I saw the surprise. The fear in their eyes.
Yeah, that's called
Somebody needs to say
Jägermeister.
maybe we shouldn't give him a microphone.
Just cut the mic
right.
at
You
some
can be as
point.
drunk as you want.
Here's
Don't
the
give him
one
a microphone.
Here's one for you. The Jar said, you guys aren't the only people that make mistakes on a daily basis.
Oh, what happened?
How about this bakery in Connecticut that made a mistake trying to make heart-shaped cookies for Valentine's Day,
Oh, God.
instead made scrotum cookies.
Those are balls. Those are Like the nuts of a bulldog.
I didn't see this before the show.
Man.
Yeah, so those were supposed to be heart-shaped
They need some
cookies.
black sprinkles.
Instead, can I get 9 testicles?
That's supposed to be hearts?
They're like mini butt cheeks.
No. Oh, God.
That's
Probably tasty.
that is a tough one. And the other question is, if you're gonna make gonad cookies, did you have to make them human skin colors?
Exactly. Right. That's exactly it.
Yes.
Like Valentine's should be red,
I'll
maybe
take
white.
I'll take a dozen rainbow cookies.
Yeah.
Give me a couple chocolate chips. And what are those? Scrotum cookies?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any coming African American?
Hey, kids, you want some
just
cookies
white
look like
nuts?
daddy's balls?
Right.
Yeah,
white
no
nuts?
problem. So, anyhow, that guy got fired.
Dozens.
And final one from the
Dozen
jar.
nuts.
The jar says, it's a one-line statement here, pitchers and catchers, let's go.
Let's go.
Baseball
About that time,
is
people.
on the horizon. And let's check out Mr. Toe himself.
Mr. Toe.
Aaron
He's running.
Judge running
that
without
running?
a limp. And he just hit 43 home runs.
Yes.
He leads the majors in dingers right now. But the New York Yankees are at
Go
spring
Yankees.
training. So it's all good
About
in the
that
hood.
time.
And by the way, the jar did not even attack you today, Willie.
Oh.
The jar
Jar, disappointing
is now
Jar.
closed for
I
business.
still don't trust it.
All right, we got much more coming up. We'll get to your headlines. We'll get into that Steve Wilks firing in San Francisco, and of course, the latest on yesterday's terrible tragedy in Kansas City, and Plaxico Burress will join us as well. Lots more coming your way right here on FS1. All right, welcome back to the Carton Show. Let me welcome Plaxico Burress here as always. Obviously, today difficult to handle what took place in Kansas City yesterday during the Super Bowl parade. Their second in as many years out in Kansas City. Just under 1 million people gathered to watch the Kansas City Chiefs, stroll down those main streets in Kansas City and be celebrated as Super Bowl champions. And then at the very end of the parade, as you all know by now, there was another terrible shooting. At least 3 gunmen are in custody, or alleged gunmen are in custody. As of right now, up to the minute, we are being told that one young lady unfortunately lost her life in the shooting. She was a radio DJ out in Kansas City, a mom of 2. 21 others are injured. 8 of those injuries are life-threatening, and obviously medical staff at the local hospitals are tending to those folks. The shooting occurred just outside of what is known as Union Station, which is that major building you saw a lot of the police officers running to, which is always a good reminder for me. When most people run away from those types of things, men and women in law enforcement run towards it and towards the danger, which is why you can't thank them enough for their service. And now we've all seen the video of a couple random guys trying to enjoy the festivities with their families, seeing one of the alleged gunmen running down what looks like a sidewalk there and tackling him, getting him down to the ground, separating him from what looks like a rifle of some sort, while one of the man's wives picks the gun up and throws it off to the side. And then within about a minute, maybe at most, a couple of uniformed police officers do come over and cuff the suspect. They have 3 men now in custody, but a tremendous tragedy in Kansas City as we as a nation now mourn with them at another senseless shooting at a gathering in an American city. And it's become all too commonplace now, obviously, in our country, whether it's a concert in Las Vegas a number of years ago, a nightclub shooting, school shootings, and now here it's a little slice of Americana that we all kind of, get ready for every year, whatever city wins the Super Bowl. And no joke, about 1 million people showing up to watch their heroes come down the street on convertibles and open-air buses and whatnot. And, of course, marred by senseless violence. We've talked about it a little bit. You just joined us, Plaxico. You, of course, watched it yesterday as well. And I want to give you an opportunity just to get a thought or two out on it.
Yeah, I was actually just sitting out for lunch yesterday, having lunch after the show, and sitting beside my guy and looking up at the TV, but the volume wasn't up. And I just tapped. I said, "Man, look how many people out there." And I didn't hear about it until I got home, and I said to myself, "I'm like, wow, it's like this is a family event, basically." And they took this opportunity to use this stage for which is a celebratory moment, which is something that hadn't been done, obviously, in over 20 years. Those guys trying to accomplish winning back-to-back Super Bowls, and something like this happens, and you say to yourself, is there anywhere safe to go anymore?
Right.
Especially of something of this magnitude for this whole state, for the city, for something so horrific to happen at an event like this. It's just really unfortunate, and I just you just can't say enough about it, and obviously, having been through some things, and just understanding how many people are hurt from it.
Yep.
And it's really sad for the city, and it just puts a dim light on the whole championship, everything that we've been speaking about.
And it won't change cities' abilities to have these types of celebrations, but it'll change our perspective of going to them.
Right.
And you're looking over your shoulder and worrying about, am I safe, and what am I going to do if, right? The other side of it, the thing that I took out of it, and I watched a lot of the coverages you guys did, throughout the day yesterday, with my family as well, and I have a 13-year-old at home who came home, didn't know the news until he got home and watched some of the coverage with me. And that is, you have just about 1 million people there. Mm-hmm. And as much as my heart bleeds for the family of the young woman who was killed and those who are now, fighting for their lives and recovering, and the emotional distress that so many people now are going to be dealing with in the aftermath of the shooting, I also do consider really how fortunate so many people are that if there really were 3 gunmen out there with what appear to be AK-47 type, rifles, it could have been as bad as it was, incredibly worse with the loss of life that could have occurred yesterday. And I can't thank enough the amazing acts of heroism and selflessness of a couple random guys out there with their families. The one guy, wife and kids are at the parade with him and recognizes that guy don't look right, and he's running past me, and oh my God, he's got a gun, and you either react or you don't. And he and a couple other people tackle this dude, get on top of him, get the gun away from him. And when you talk about heroes, we expect our police officers to be heroes. That's the job they sign up for, put themselves in harm's way to protect us. But there's no expectation of a random guy, who's a concrete layer for his job, doing what he did yesterday, and for sure saving God knows how many people by tackling a dude armed and staying on top of him so that he couldn't move until the police officers got to him and arrested him.
Yeah, reportedly it was over 800 law enforcement authorities that was at the parade.
Right.
And to your point, like we're New Yorkers, we were in New York when the Yankees were winning, when they were winning at a high volume. And I remember being a kid who begged my mom to skip school. Begged her, like, listen, I'm not learning anything anyway, right? Like, let me out there. Let me go see the boys in the stripes. And just having, and I can remember her arguing. She was like, well, it seems like a safe place, right? Like, what's going to happen? Now you seriously have to take into consideration that it's no longer a safe place, because even with the Denver Nuggets, right, at the end of their parade, there was a shooting, right? And now you're talking about this. And now you're talking about Andy Reid, right? You made up a great point in Union Station.
I should mention that again. Andy Reid has been credited with calming a bunch of young people who were displaced from their families in the mayhem. And I guess he and his wife, Tammy, wound up inside that building right there, Union Station. And this isn't Andy telling the story, these are other people saying, Andy Reid calmed me down. Andy Reid helped out in just making things okay for people that were panicking.
And my point is, and you brought the tweet by Brittany Mahomes saying, listen, we may have to reevaluate how we're having these parades. We may have to just bring it to the building and celebrate there, because this is back-to-back instances where we're now acknowledging at the end of these parades, there's casualties.
I was at Plaxico's parade. I hosted it on TV, the local news coverage of your parade when you guys won the Super Bowl after beating the New England Patriots. And I'll never forget, I'm on this huge scaffold thing. It's basically where City Hall is, here in New York City. And you saw it yesterday as well. There are snipers on the tops of buildings just in case. And you saw that at the end of the parade yesterday. And obviously the guys have been apprehended before, a sniper's got to pull the trigger. And then you, of course, have guys reacting to it. Patrick Mahomes, very simple tweet yesterday as he found out, praying for Kansas City. You have Travis Kelce, clearly who was inebriated at the parade, but took a moment, or someone on his team did for sure, heartbroken over the tragedy that took place today. Heart is with all who came out to celebrate with us and have been affected. KC, you mean the world to me. The Chiefs put out a statement. I'll read it. We are truly saddened by the senseless act of violence that occurred outside Union Station at the conclusion of today's parade and rally. Our hearts go out to the victims, their families, and all of Kansas City. The NFL put out a similar statement. We are deeply saddened by the senseless shooting that occurred today near the end of the rally in Kansas City for the Chiefs. Our thoughts are with the victims, everyone affected. We are grateful for the quick and thorough response of law enforcement and emergency personnel, period, stop. And of course, you can't, say that without also acknowledging the regular, laymen, non-first responders, non-police officers, non-firefighters who tackled this alleged gunman. There has been nothing released yet as to the motives here, if these guys are part of a group, if they acted alone, and why and what the heck they were thinking that drove them to that parade to enact the damage and the violence that they did on the American public and the good people of Kansas City. Look, I do think there's still going to be parades. I think when you win a championship, one of the great things teams do in their connection with their cities, because they are really a public trust. Mm-hmm. If you were to think about our relationship with our local teams, the celebration is what we as fans all wait for. It's what we look forward to. Like I said, I was at your parade. I was at, the 2009 New York Yankees parade down the Canyon of Heroes, same kind of scenario. And that's called fandom, what you're looking at right there. 100%. That's nearly 1 million people not going to work, not going to school on a random Wednesday deciding I need to be here to watch this historical sports moment in my hometown, or just I'm a fan of the team and I don't even live in Kansas City, but I need to be there. And the question, of course, is how many people, after watching what took place yesterday, would still feel safe going to an event like that. Here in New York, Thanksgiving, of course. We have the Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Every year.
And many other parades down, Fifth Avenue here, whether it's St. Patrick's Day or you name it. And many cities across the country have these mass gatherings of people. And the question is, when something like yesterday happens, do you decide, you know what? I'm going to watch it on TV.
One of the things about the parade that is so special for the fans in particular is because we always talk about get-in prices for the Super Bowl or get-in prices for the championship. Not everyone can go there.
Yep.
But the parade is a point for the entire community to come out. And a lot of kids are at the parade, and our hearts and feelings and thoughts go out to everyone who's been injured, and obviously Lisa Lopez-Galvin who lost her life. But the reverberations and the trauma that's caused by people who were there, people who had to run, flee the scene. And even you mentioned your son, Craig. Like, my son said, why did this happen? And I don't have an answer. And we obviously know nothing about the motive at this point, and we'll update you when we have it. But there's no answer for that question from a child that says, well, why did this happen at the parade? And I just have to say, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and that's the toughest part about it. And obviously, this becomes a much different, conversation, a political conversation, a gun control conversation, which is not meant for us here at this table at this moment. But thoughts and prayers obviously go out. There's also a personal connection to this because for those of you that watch FS1, the First Things First crew, Nick Wright, of course, and Kevin and Chris Broussard were big time on the Kansas City Chief wagon. At least Nick Wright quite famously is. And they were broadcasting live from the parade yesterday and heard the gunshots and were evacuated from the parade and protected in a local hotel that they were staying at. They have all made it back to New York safely and will be on the air today. So they will have kind of a first-person accounting of, their emotional roller coaster, I'm sure, having been a part of the parade yesterday as well.
Yeah, thank God the boys made it home safely. But I think right now, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, it's not their responsibility to heal the community, but there's a responsibility to lead the community, understand that we got to start protecting each other. That's why when you see that guy tackle that one gunman, it shows that, listen, not all heroes wear capes, right? Because that guy didn't have to do that. And so this shows that there's good people out there doing good things.
No doubt. We'll take a quick break. We'll get right back at it. Now the Plax is here. Tons of football to talk about. And we'll get into San Francisco's decision to fire their defensive coordinator. Only for the past year, Steve Wilks is out. And now the question is, why was he fired? Should he have been fired? And who's most likely to replace him as San Francisco tries to figure out how do we run it back and get to the Super Bowl and win it next year? We'll get into it right after this on FS1.
As we celebrate Black History Month, I'd like to recognize Bayard Rustin. Born in Westchester, Pennsylvania in 1912, Rustin was a key figure in American civil rights movement of the 1960s. He was a close advisor to Martin Luther King Jr. and was instrumental in organizing the August 1963 March on Washington. Rustin can be seen standing right behind Dr. King as he delivered his historic I Have a Dream speech in front of more than 200,000 people at the Lincoln Memorial. As an openly gay man, Rustin took on a background role in the civil rights movement, leading to much of his impact not being widely known to the public today. He was also instrumental in the LGBTQ movement of the 1980s and was an advocate for the AIDS education and awareness. In 2013, over 23 years after his death, Rustin was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama.
Good job. Of course, throughout the month, everyone here in FS1 will be sharing vignettes of African Americans who made a difference throughout the years. So good to see Greg Jennings here as well. Plaxico Burress is here, Willie Cologne's here, and of course, David Jacoby here as well. So yesterday it happened. San Francisco decided, you know what? We need a scapegoat for losing Super Bowl 58. So let's make it that guy right there, Steve Wilks. He really got screwed in Carolina after doing a good job the last 2 months as head coach there and got fired so they could bring Frank Reich in, who failed miserably. He gets to San Francisco, good chance to be on a winning coaching staff, goes to a Super Bowl, and then he gets fired because they lost the Super Bowl. So before we comment on it, let's hear from Kyle Shanahan on the decision, which of course he claimed was a very difficult one to make as he fired Steve Wilks. Go ahead, guys.
And bringing in Steve, who was unbelievable, and how loyal he was, and him trying to do it, but it just ended up not being the right fit. And so it hurt for me to do this, but that's exactly why I had to.
All right, not the right fit. All right, so let's go back to October 23rd, a little blood in the water back then to give you a little precursor for Wilks getting fired yesterday. Here's Kyle Shanahan on October 23rd when he wasn't pleased with the defensive effort in a San Francisco 49er loss. Listen to this.
He knows he messed up on that call. I have no problem with zero blitzes, especially when people need a lot of yards. You know, if you need to get 20 yards to kick a field goal, I have no problem with a zero blitz. But I do when there's 16 seconds left, and that's where he lost track.
Yeah, so here's the play he's talking about. This is the Minnesota game. Now, this is the game Brock Purdy got concussed in and threw a bunch of interceptions, and that ball damn near got intercepted.
That's a pick.
Right there, and should have been a pick. But he was very critical of the decision to play that coverage there with less than a minute to go in that game. And here's probably the most damning comment against Steve Wilks, because it comes from one of their best players. Nick Bosa talked about Steve Wilks and how they just weren't prepared. What? In the Super Bowl? The zone read got us a couple of times. We could have been more prepared there. We have to know in crucial situations who's going to have the ball. If we could get them back, we would have been more prepared. And that's an indictment on Steve Wilks, and frankly also an indictment on the veteran defensive players on the field for San Francisco. So look, when players are talking like that, either they just didn't like Steve Wilks, or they're looking for a scapegoat and they made it Steve Wilks. I would just say this, because I have no problem if you want to fire Steve Wilks, fire him. I'm fine with it. There's other qualified defensive coordinators, or Rex Ryan, that they should hire. We'll get to that in a second. I will just say this. To me, Steve Wilks didn't get fired solely because of how and why they lost the Super Bowl. If you want to point to their defensive effort against Green Bay, that's a pretty good exhibit to show people. If you want to show them going down 17-0 to Detroit, that's a pretty good exhibit to show against Steve Wilks. But I would say this, in my defense of Steve Wilks, Steve Wilks didn't decide not to block Chris Jones on the third down play in overtime. Steve Wilks held the Patrick Mahomes Kansas City offense essentially to less than 20 points through 4 quarters of play in the biggest game of the year, Super Bowl 58. Steve Wilks didn't decide to let a punt hit him on the side of his foot and turn the ball over for an easy touchdown on the very next play to Kansas City. Steve Wilks didn't tell Christian McCaffrey to fumble the ball on the opening drive of the game when they're going down to get guaranteed points, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown. So yes, Steve Wilks would not have been the right fit. He may have made some decisions that cost you, but he is not solely responsible for the loss. That being said, there was a moment when I look back on the Super Bowl now where we all should have figured this was going to happen. And you're talking about an overtime. And you're talking about Kansas City marching down the field, and they're already on the San Francisco side of the 50. And if you remember, San Francisco called the timeout on defense right here. Why did they call the timeout? Because of the circle right there. Romo made it a point to show how many defensive backs are on the field. And Shanahan's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's the defense we're running? No. And right then and there, you had to recognize, obviously looking back on it, that Shanahan couldn't believe the defenses that Steve Wilks was calling, and now Steve Wilks is out of a job.
You know what? I was watching this game, and I remember that play like it was yesterday. And I said to myself, I've never seen a head coach like so demonstrative about calling a timeout in that point of the game, saying, you know what? We're not running that defense. Call something else. And I said to myself right then, I said, you know what? If the San Francisco 49ers lose this game, Steve Wilks is going to get fired. Because that showed me right there that Kyle Shanahan, no matter what he says in the media and on interviews, he does not trust Steve Wilks in this defense. Because when you're a defensive coordinator, not just in the Super Bowl, but week to week, playing against any other team, you know their tendencies on down and distance. Right? We know what they're going to do on 3rd and 8. We know what they're going to do on 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 plus, or whatever the case may be. So Steve Wilks already had a bead on what Kansas City wanted to do, and Kyle Shanahan trumped them and basically said, you know what? We're not running that defense. Call something else. And then they came out and played man-to-man, one high free safety, and I believe they ended up getting the yards anyway. But that showed me right there that Steve Wilks was out the door if they lost that game.
And I can tell you, we've all watched a lot of football. You guys played, obviously, the highest level one Super Bowls. I don't know that I can ever remember, and maybe it's happened, I just don't know it, where in a spot like that, the head coach calls a timeout because he's saying to himself, my coordinator lost his mind. That's not the right defense. I've never seen that before.
Right, and then that's how you cause a mutiny on the sideline too, right? Because when you go against your defensive coordinator, not only did the coordinator understand that he's just been overthrown, but Nick Bosa and the rest of the boys. Now you create a panic. Now you create a panic in overtime when you're going against Patrick Mahomes. Now you create a miscommunication on the back end. So if you're now Steve Wilks, you're saying, then what am I here for? Right? Because if that could happen in the biggest stage of the game.
And to be fair, although Shanahan called the timeout and they did go to the man-to-man defense, Kansas City still scored a touchdown and won the game. So, I'm not saying that one play dictated the outcome of the game, but that one play is a magnifying glass as to the lack of relationship and trust, which is a great word there, Plax, between Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilks, which, you know, if you guys ever thought on it, I'm going to fast forward it real quick. Everyone good?
Yeah.
All right. Now brings up the question, all right, well, who replaces him? Rex Ryan. Obvious answer. Because Rex even said there's only a couple jobs in the NFL that I would take, and I would say no to a lot of them because they ain't got the talent to win. Could you imagine after Dallas spurns Rex Ryan over contractual terms and money and all that? Oh, is that right? Oh, you don't want me? You want Mike Zimmer? Guess where I'm going to go? I'm going to go to San Francisco, and the pedigree is there. And if I'm Rex Ryan, and I got that burning desire, not just to be a coordinator, but to be a head coach again one day before my career's a wrap, I go to San Francisco. We all agree that they're a lock to be in the postseason next year and probably win their division and are already the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Rex Ryan goes to Frisco. He makes a couple $1 million. He tinkers a little bit with that defense. San Fran wins the Super Bowl in a close game against the New York Jets and allow the dream scenario. And Rex Ryan becomes the #1 head coaching candidate in the NFL. Like, the best thing that might have happened to Rex was Jerry Jones getting cold feet and hiring Mike Zimmer.
I think
Willie knows this. Like, Rex is petty like that.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
So he'll do something to actually throw it in Dallas Cowboys face.
Yep.
Go over there and take this job with the San Francisco 49ers. But I'm looking at a role reversal. So if Kyle Shanahan was the coach in this Super Bowl, and Rex Ryan was defensive coordinator, and he went over top Rex's head to call a timeout, it'd have been fireworks on the
they'll
sideline.
probably be fighting like his dad did on the sideline.
It'd be Kevin Gilbride, Buddy Ryan moment on the sideline right
now. I think Rex is a name, but there's also Mike Vrabel out there. He doesn't have a coaching position. There's Bill Belichick out there. I don't think he's interested in being a coordinator. But still, I think Vrabel's a name that you should put out there. Rex is a name you should put out there. They have an opportunity to upgrade.
But I also think you hit it right on head. There's obviously a disconnection between the players that were on that field and Nick Bosa and company and Steve Wilks. Because one thing to knock on Steve Wilks was that he was too mild-mannered. He wasn't fiery. The last two coordinators, D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh, they were fiery guys. Those guys marched to the beat of the drum. You get Rex Ryan on that sideline? Come on now.
I can't believe a guy of Nick Bosa's caliber.
We'll say something like that.
A first-team All-Pro defensive end, arguably the best football player at his position in the game, will come out and throw a defensive coordinator like Steve Wilks under the bus and say, we were not prepared for the zone read.
They ran twice.
If we had an idea of who was getting the ball, maybe we could have played better on defense. You know what? Read your keys and play football.
Right.
That's what the
but
game
not
is
even
all
on top
about.
of that, like you're 100% right, because Nick Bosa's been in the league long enough. He knows you make a comment like that, that's personal. That's not coming from a rookie. That's not coming from somebody who didn't play in this league. He's an all-pro guy.
To be fair, and this is what I don't know the answer to this, maybe one of the 43 producers upstairs do. I'm imagining Nick Bosa made that comment after Wilks got fired.
Still no
Or
excuse.
did he make it before?
That's still
all right, so I'm being told now that he made that comment right after the game, but prior to Wilks getting fired. Now, to me, if you say that after the fact, well, there's blood in the water, you know the guy got canned, so it's easy to come out now and blame him. The fact that he said it also led to the firing.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, even whether you said it before or after it, this is a guy we all hold to a different regard, right? This isn't a young guy saying it.
Right.
Nick Bosa understands if you're the captain, one of those captains on the defense, and you're saying you're not prepared, that's a direct correlation to your defensive coordinator. Because you're not talking about a rookie DB or a rookie linebacker. You're talking about somebody who, by all accounts, when Steve Wilks needs to play, he's not drawing up a defense for somebody else to get home.
This guy's a rock star.
He's drawing up a defense for Nick Bosa to get
Just
home.
like you said after the Super Bowl. You know, your job is to play football.
Right.
The coaches make the calls, and your job as the player is to go out and try to execute that play call to the best of your ability.
This whole situation feels personal because when I watched the football game, the Super Bowl, I walked away from that saying the 49ers defense showed up. Like, they basically shut out the Chiefs the entire first half, and they lost Greenlaw.
Right.
Like, don't forget that. They lost Greenlaw. Like, I walked away from the Super Bowl saying the 49ers defense played much better in the Super Bowl than they did the previous two playoff games, and that they did a good job, which makes me feel it wasn't necessarily the X's and O's. It wasn't what happened on the field. It wasn't the zone read, like Nick Bosa says. This was a personal problem between Shanahan.
Here's the problem, though. They did play better than they played against Detroit and Green Bay. You're dead right on that. The problem, though, is that they blew a lead at the end of regulation, and they blew a lead in overtime. Like, if that defense steps up and gets the job done, the parade's in San Francisco yesterday, not in Kansas City. Like, they allowed Kansas City to go 75 yards down the field. There's only one fourth down in that entire drive, and there's fourth and
inches,
about 6 inches. And the reality is that they never got to another fourth down. They did everything they wanted as they wanted to, and San Fran barely put up a fight. So from that standpoint, yes, they played better. And yes, if I'm Steve Wilks, I could, crow to the moon talking about how I held that offense to less than 20 points for 60 minutes. I did my job. My guys did their job. But when Bosa, leader of the defense, comes out and goes, we weren't prepared, and when the reality is that you gave up a 75-yard drive to lose the Super Bowl, guess what? You were there for 1 year. They were a good team before you got there. The coach threw you under the bus after the Minnesota loss, October 23rd. Right. I'm guaranteeing you at that moment, Steve Wilks had boxes packed and knew it's a good thing I'm renting because I ain't going to be here very long.
Hey, but if you're John Lynch and you're Kyle Shanahan, you're saying to yourself, taking this job as a defense coordinator for this team, it comes with a tremendous amount of pressure because everybody in Vegas, the fans, us, everybody always has the San Francisco 49ers pegged to win a championship next year.
They're favorites.
And they don't even have a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
So with that being said, what coordinator is going to come in to this position and be under pressure and getting scrutinized
My guy,
all
Rex
year
Ryan.
round?
Remember, Rex Ryan
Rex can
said
handle it, though.
when he didn't get the Dallas job, when he was still up in the air, he made it clear there's only a handful of jobs I would come back for, and it's got to be a team that's got talent that just needs a little tweaking. There is no team in football that fits that description better right now than San Francisco. And as much as I'm a Jet fan, and I loved Rex when he was our head coach, as a fan of Rex and a fan of football, I need Rex Ryan back on the sideline. By the way, I'll tell you this. Since they've got the old quarterback in Brock Purdy, you add Rex Ryan to that coaching staff, there's a chance we're talking 17-0.
Right, but I think we also have to understand.
Carton.
When Wilks got the job, he took underneath. He I guess inherited Robert Sala's defense. He would stay with the 4-3 scheme. If Rex come in, he's going to have a 3-4 scheme.
That's right. That's what he coaches. Defense. And they're going to be all over. They're going to be ball hawking all over the place. Yeah. And by the way, that's a better job than the Cowboy job. Man, you ask me?
Hey, the media getting after Rex Ryan if he takes this job and the scrutiny and everything that's going to come with Rex is going to turn this into a comedy show.
Yes.
It's going to be fun to watch because you can't ruffle his feathers.
Before we take a break, time for one NBA thing, and it involves Draymond Green. I love this video. Draymond Green right there in the lane pretends like he got hit in the chin, goes down. Play continues. One shot, that's two shots, defensive rebound.
All right.
Draymond is still down. Let's go down the other way. There's a three-pointer, no good.
Let's go the other
Golden
way.
State gets the rebound. Let's come back. He's still laying down on the ground. Let's dunk it with him on the ground. Let's go the other way now. Draymond Green still on the ground, and another dunk.
Draymond, get up!
You know what? I blame the referees for that. That's the referees.
Blow the whistle.
That's the referees being so petty. That's exactly what they're doing. Over the years, getting in their face.
By the way, all Golden State has to do is call timeout. They didn't. They missed the three-pointer there. Let's go the other way. Let's take a three-pointer. That's no good. Draymond's still laying on the ground. How about this? How about you get up?
Get up.
What it's worth saying is, if we show it from the top,
what if he got a concussion?
He elbows Zubac in the face. I don't even know if he got hit, but if you watch it from the top, he elbows Zubac in the face to start the play. It should be Zubac who's on the ground, not Draymond Green.
That's the
Watch Draymond Green's left elbow right at the top of this. Boom. He elbows him in the face.
Yeah.
Draymond elbows him, and he's on the ground for an hour.
Meanwhile, with Draymond Green laying on the floor, there were five shots attempted, 3 possessions.
2 dunks.
And 2 dunks. And he's laying on the ground.
At what point did he realize nobody cares? Like nobody cares that you're hurt, Draymond. Get up. Like a dunk happened over your body. Think about that. They're dunking on your body.
The refs always blow the whistle in this scenario. Always.
Yeah, listen, so the rule is you can't take a possession away from the opponent because they have the ball. When you have the ball, you're allowed to go timeout to protect your guy. Nobody called timeout, and Draymond's like, they're paying me to nap. I might as well take a little nap. But I do agree with Plax. If that's any other player, the refs probably get involved, but they're like, oh, good. Finally, he's on the ground, just where we want.
That's bad, man.
But think of 5 shots, 3 possessions.
Surprised they didn't call a tech on him.
I'm mad at Draymond. Like, when nobody responds to you, at some point, like, all right.
You gotta get up.
Get up.
Maybe the guy was really concussed or hurt.
Okay.
I think he's all right.
Coming up, the latest on Chris Jones. He spoke at the parade yesterday, and we have a good life lesson to teach all of you after the break, and that is, don't ever bother Bo Jackson when he's at an Auburn sporting event. We'll explain and show you a video to back that statement up right after this. You don't know the words. You know the words?
Okay,
Chelsea.
Go right through that line up blue. Watch the points keep rolling.
You got it, guys.
There we go.
Maybe one day they'll do right by you and retire your number and put you in the Hall of Fame of Michigan State.
Should.
Which they should do.
You want me to write an email?
There you go. All right, anyhow, quick note for you. The great Bo Jackson was back at the Auburn men's college basketball game yesterday. And before the game, very gracious, signed like 1,000 autographs, took pictures with everybody. But then the game started. And when the game started, a young man saw Bo Jackson and said, "Can I take a selfie with you?" And here's Bo Jackson in the blue there. "Get your face out of my face. I'm trying to watch a basketball game." Yeah. By the way, I totally appreciate that. Because pregame couldn't have been more gracious. Signed every autograph, took every picture, but now I'm watching the ball game. So leave me the F alone.
Yeah.
I want to watch the Tigers play basketball.
I feel bad. It takes a lot of balls to kind of get delayed by Bo Jackson. He could have cried.
Yes.
He shook his head with so much passion. I've never seen someone it's just like a cartoon kid.
He has a pom-pom in his hand.
Yeah. And Bo Jackson could still kick your ass.
No question.
I'll tell you that. I saw Bo Jackson naked once, and my life changed that day.
Really?
That was sad.
How do you want us to respond? When you thought about saying, how do you want us to respond to that?
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
That was a tough. How do I?
Yeah.
I was a much younger man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I needed the money.
I hope so.
Obviously, it was in an NFL locker room.
Oh, okay.
Like we weren't at a geisha house together or anything like that. So anyway, I saw him naked, and I'd never seen a body like that. Where he didn't have the typical like, dude shredded and you got an 8-pack, and it was like he was and is a like barrel-chested, thick dude who had a 6-pack on top of the thickness. I never seen nothing like that in my entire life.
Yeah.
I said, "Good to meet you, sir. Thank you, sir. May I have another?" And I walked right out. It was very intimidating seeing him naked. The only guy that was more intimidating naked in my NFL locker room experience, and not for the same reason, was Randall Cunningham.
Really?
Yeah.
Why Randall?
Jump rope Jones.
Oh, right.
That's all I'm going to say about that, and I'm going to leave it alone. But that's,
Pitches and catches report.
You guys want to move on, or you want to ask some follow-up questions?
you said keep it real, so I'm keeping it real.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to first in football. Here's Jacoby.
First in football, we start with defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, Mike Zimmer. He had his opening introductory press conference.
Saw anything like it.
You can just feel the excitement and passion exuding from Coach Zimmer here. Here he is.
Like a cobra.
And I've always been comfortable with Steven and Jerry. They've been outstanding to my family, ever since, when I was here way back when. And so there was never a question of whether or not I wanted to be here at all.
So, obviously, McCarthy is in his last year of his contract. Could Zimmer end up being a McCarthy replacement?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got head coaching experience. He obviously knows the Jones family very well. He was with the Dallas Cowboys for the better part of a decade.
13 years.
If you go back, the Barry Switzer days. So there is familiarity there. And, this seems like a knock, and I guess it is. I don't mean it to be. But Mike Zimmer doesn't make anyone excited. It doesn't make you moist. If I'm a Cowboy fan, I'm not going home going, woohoo! We got Mike Zimmer, especially because, Rex Ryan was out there and interviewed for the job. That being said, let's also be fair about what Mike Zimmer is. He is a tried and true, respected, successful coordinator and head coach in his past in the NFL. So he does walk into that locker room with at least a certain level of respect built in because of his history in the NFL and what he's done as a coach throughout his time in the NFL. The problem is what you're asking. Did Jerry Jones make the safer play to make sure that Mike McCarthy didn't feel like my replacement is known as Brute and he's sharpening the knife right now, waiting for me to stumble? And I think Mike Zimmer is certainly a safer hire than a Rex Ryan hire based on that. I also get the sense, the more I think about it, that Mike McCarthy isn't fazed by whoever they hire. Mike McCarthy's made a lot of money. He's making a lot of money, about $7 million this year. He's got a Super Bowl championship, above his fireplace at home. Yep. And he doesn't have to work ever again if he doesn't want to. So he knows he's going in as a lame duck coach contractually. And it's very simple. if you win in the playoffs and advance, I think at this point, you got to get to the NFC Championship game. If the Dallas Cowboys are not playing in the NFC Championship game, I don't know how the Dallas Cowboy fan base would accept him coming back for another 2 or 3 year run. They lived through it with Jason Garrett. And I've never seen, Jerry Jones give a coach that much latitude to not get to a championship game or a Super Bowl. I can't see them extending Mike McCarthy if they're not playing in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's all or nothing for Mike McCarthy. But I think moving forward for Coach Zimmer, this is a situation. It's safe because he's been in the building. And he's recognized in the building along with the resume. But I also think it's safe because what I talked about earlier, this is going to be a culture change. This is going to be yin and yang. Mike McCarthy is a player's coach. Guys like him. People receive him, but they don't fear him. I think when Greg was here, he kind of alluded, people fear Mike Zimmer, right? Because he's straightforward. He's old school.
And he told that Norv Turner story.
He told the Norv Turner
where he basically told the entire team, Norv Turner ain't getting the job done. Right. If our offense stinks this week, I'm going to fire him. And he fired him.
And he did. And on top of that, I think Zimmer has a lot of the tuna in him, too. Kind of like
Bill Parcells.
Straight downhill. He's going to get guys to respond. He understands he's not with the gimmick or Hollywood things. I think he's going to get a better response out of Michael Parsons. I think they're going to draft a little bit better. But I think, first and foremost, schematically, they're going to be better.
So let me ask you guys a quick question. What's the better job to get? The Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator job or the San Francisco defensive coordinator job?
Question.
I don't even think it's close.
Not even a question.
I think it's the Niners job.
I think the Niners job is by far the better job.
I agree.
Yeah. So we're all on the same page there. So Mike Zimmer gets the Dallas job, meaning whoever might have been considered for the Dallas gig that didn't get it, I'm on the phone immediately to see if I can go get that San Fran job.
It doesn't make sense to me about this. If Rex Ryan was your number one guy, and you're Jerry Jones and you putting it out there, I'm all in. I would do anything that it takes to win. Then why could you not get Rex Ryan the money that he wanted to become your defensive coordinator?
Great question. And only Jerry Jones can answer that because the story is that it wasn't about them wanting Rex Ryan. It was about the contract.
You know and we know that Rex Ryan is a better defensive coordinator than Mike Zimmer.
I would agree with that.
For the organization. So give him the money that he wants, and we wouldn't be having.
And by the way, it ain't like you don't have the money. Right, you're Jerry Jones. Your franchise is worth maybe $10 billion based on what the Commodores just sold for.
Right.
Like you could have given him a check for whatever the hell he wanted if you're all in.
But I think that when you make Rex Ryan defensive coordinator and you move on from Mike McCarthy, everybody's thinking to themselves that Rex Ryan may be the next coach of this team.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jerry Jones.
And I'll do you one better on that.
Rex Ryan being the head coach.
And you said this a lot.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones is the star of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, correct.
Rex Ryan is the star of everywhere he goes.
Right.
And if Rex Ryan goes in there, whether they're winning or not winning, Rex Ryan becomes the go-to quote of the Dallas Cowboys every single week. Yep. He's also the guy, and I've lived it because I covered the New York Jets or talked about the Jets here while he was here on the radio. Rex Ryan is one of the best at formulating friendships with guys in the media. And here's a little story for you may not know. Here's a little story you may not know. And guys do that. I mean, he's not the only one, obviously. And he does it as well as anybody.
Moving on to second in football, one of the biggest questions facing the Super Bowl champion Chiefs is what are they going to do with Chris Jones and can they get a deal done? Well, Chris Jones might have had a couple when he addressed that topic with a microphone at the parade. Here is the defensive star for the Chiefs.
Kansas City, we will be back here next year. And for those who want Chris Jones gone, I ain't going nowhere, baby.
Well, no one wants Chris Jones gone, but it was his agent, Michael Katz, who said, cut them off bartenders with 4 exclamation points. Too much beer.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Chris Jones stays with the Chiefs next season?
Look, no, I don't, because I think they're going to make him an offer, obviously. But here's a guy that was willing to miss the whole year, at least he claimed, over the contract. So he didn't get a new contract. Kansas City really dug their heels in and said, we ain't giving you a new contract. We made the money back in the bonus at the end of the year for sacks, as you guys remember, the celebration on the sideline. He got that $1 million bonus, which even he said afterwards, I'm basically even now from what I lost during the contract holdout. He is too good a player and at the right age in his career for a couple teams not to make a run at him.
Right.
Because much like San Fran thought when they got Chase Young, now I got the best defensive line of football. Obviously didn't work out. But there'll be enough really good teams. I'm not even talking teams like Carolina or Washington, teams on the outside looking in, there will be really good football teams.
And don't close the door on these potential teams coming in and breaking the bank on you. So that's basically what Katz is saying.
Yeah, but think about it. You made a good point. Like I said it yesterday, I mentioned the Chicago Bears possibly making an offer for him. But think about the Houston Texans, right? The Houston Texans have money to spend, right? And you talk about a defense alongside with Will Anderson. You have the quarterback. They're one solid juggernaut piece away from being in the AFC Championship. You added Chris Jones to a Texans defense. What that look like next year? So I'm Chris Jones. You got the hardware. You got everything you need. You most valuable you're ever going to be in your career.
But it's money. It's a money.
I mean, listen, from a contract standpoint, if we're talking about, a $15, $20, $30 million difference, and that's a totally different story when we're talking, guaranteed money from him moving on from the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. But if it's, in that range of 5 to 10 and it's Houston or wherever it may be, you got to say to yourself as a player, is it worth me going there and starting?
Yeah, it's a money play for sure. And this will be the last contract he signs in his NFL career. And now it comes down to how much does the money have to be over what Kansas City offers me for me to leave a situation where I know I got the best chance to get back to another Super Bowl. I think you go to the NFC if there's a really good team out there that's looking for defensive line help, because I do think the trip to the Super Bowl is easier on the NFC side, but I think you guys lived it. This is a money play, period, stop, which is why, if I'm Michael Katz, or I think Jason's his brother, right? Yeah. Right, the agents that represent him. Mm-hmm. If I'm those guys, Chris, stop making it harder for me to do my job, because that's all that is. And remember, those guys get 3 or 4% or whatever he makes. So they're looking to make sure that their bank account is filled too. What else you got, Jacoby?
We got your third and football. This is an interesting story. A former NFL talent scout named Daniel Kelly had some really interesting thoughts about what many consider to be the number one prospect and potential number one pick in the NFL draft, Caleb Williams. Here's what he said about Williams, and I quote, Daniel Kelly, I have a 4th round grade on Caleb Williams. With the way folks keep the receipts, I had to make sure, so I evaluated every snap the past 2 seasons, and he finishes with, he's not it. Now, this is just one man's opinion, but would this give you pause if you were going to draft him number 1?
Well, look, he's not just like a random dude on Instagram. This is a guy who's been scouting in the NFL for a long time. If I'm not mistaken, he's also the guy that loved Brock Purdy coming out of Iowa State. So he's got some gravitas when it comes to his ability to rank players and determine, if a guy's worthy of this round or that round, just for a background's sake. Look, he's not the only guy. The more we listen and talk to guys apparently in the know about Caleb Williams, he went from surefire best player, generational quarterback, etc., to all of a sudden, I don't like the way he does this, and that he's got, he's not the best in between the ears, and all of a sudden now it's like, let's beat the kid down. Right? Caleb Williams for 2 years now has been the guaranteed lock number 1 first overall pick in the NFL draft. Then you hear about guys like, Drake May. Maybe he's the guy. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting, something had to have happened in the last 12 months for a number of scouts to come out on the record and tell you that I would not draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall, because a year ago to the day, there was no disputing at all that he was the number 1 draft pick if he came out then, which he couldn't obviously at the time. He had to go 1 more year at USC to be eligible for the draft. So something happened, whether it was the way USC performed, whether it was the crying on the sideline, in his mom's embrace, whatever it was, he is turning people off. Now, this could also just be nonsense and smoke screens, but when you have a number of scouts who aren't affiliated with any team saying, look, I've done my due diligence, he ain't that guy, you have to now take pause and consider if he is.
Yeah, for me, I watched the kid play. Like, I love his arm talent. I love the fact that he can extend plays, but I think you mentioned between the ears, that seems to be a problem. Does holding on to the ball too long. But when it comes down to it, man, at the end of the day, he's a playmaker. Do you need a difference maker? I think he has that ability.
Well, the guy that's most impacted by the drafting of Caleb Williams might very well be Justin Fields. We'll give you an update on Justin Fields and whether or not he's leaving Chicago. And if he leaves Chicago, will he go to Pittsburgh? Will he go to Atlanta? Why don't we do a segment called Will He or Won't He? Will he or won't he?
Let's do it.
So let's get started. Rex Ryan will be the San Francisco 49ers' new defensive coordinator. Will he or won't he?
He won't. Sorry, Craig. I know we talked about it.
I'm not invested in it.
I know, but I know you have,
just want it to happen in the worst way.
No, I can see Mike Vrabel getting a nod if it was to be a next guy, or having a top internal hire with Daniel Bullock. He's their secondary coach. He was there with Shanahan when he first joined the Niners.
Okay, so hire from within. Don't go with Rex. What do you think there, Plax?
He won't. I believe that he's comfortable, doing this, being on TV every weekend, speaking football, and for one reason only, because of Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, you don't think he'd want to work with Kyle Shanahan? Interesting.
Ryan does not have that kind of mentality or character as a coach to put up with a Kyle Shanahan. He doesn't.
Got it, because he would think, I'm better than he is.
Absolutely.
I can't work for a guy
100%.
that I know I'm better than.
I knew your dad. Interesting. You talking about, boy?
I just thought he said you are my daddy, which is impossible. All right, I could be your daddy, just age-wise, but I can't go the other way. I do have big feet, though. All right, here's the next one for you. Brock Purdy will be the NFL MVP next season. Will he or won't he?
What? He won't. I know. He won't. Listen, I like Brock Purdy. I think he's going to have a solid year next year. But I would tell everybody to watch out for C.J. Stroud.
Oh, you and C.J.
Stroud. Listen, man. I think the young fella played at an extremely high level this year. He threw for over 4,000 yards, and I think next year's going to be another big year for him.
God. Racist. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I
had a Caesar.
Are you looking at the bad takes?
All I'm looking for is God bless you.
I got you.
Yeah, good luck.
He won't. You know what? I said yesterday. I said yesterday that the San Francisco 49ers would have, the Don in the NFC, and they would end up back in the NFC Championship game. Listen, Brock Purdy, he will not be the MVP next year. He will continue to get better as a player.
Okay.
But the fact that Kyle Shanahan fired Steve Wilks yesterday, and he was the main reason why they got to where they were, they won't even make the NFC Championship game next year.
Wow. Okay, put the plaques out on blast on that. Remember that one? Write it down, save it for next year if we're still here. I'd love to hear what Plax has to say about it when San Francisco's in the championship game. And I would answer the question, he will. Yeah. You are looking right there at the 2024-2025 NFL MVP.
Ooh.
Right? Unless, of course, Aaron Rodgers wins it, which
is on the board.
Certainly on the table.
You can't have two picks.
I'm just saying.
You always want two choices. You always give two answers.
That's right. That's what I do. That's right.
Your name's on the show.
All right, here we go. Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback for your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Ooh,
will he or won't he?
I'm going to say he will, Craig. Yeah, man. You talk about what Arthur Smith does well. He believes in a running quarterback, and he has a running system.
He's the new offensive coordinator.
For the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, man. At the end of the day, man, it's over in Chicago. The man's been through enough. He's still a young, talented quarterback. Send him to Pittsburgh because Mike Tomlin loved him coming out and loves him right now. I would love to see Justin Fields in the black and gold.
I know. I'm going to say he won't. I think the better situation for Justin Fields right now as a quarterback, if he wants to get to that next level, is to be the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons, okay.
You got Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Raheem Morris is your new coach, and they also just added Zach Robinson as offensive coordinator. So I'm going to say.
So here's the thing I think you guys are agreeing on. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm right or wrong about this. We all agree that Justin Fields will not be the Chicago Bears quarterback. We're in agreement on that.
Yeah,
whether or not they draft Caleb Williams, we'll find out.
And I also said the Raiders a couple days ago, but the fact that Antonio and the Raiders hired Luke Getsy to be their offensive coordinator. Luke Getsy was Justin Fields' OC in Chicago. But if I'm Justin Fields, I'm not going to join Luke Getsy again.
Right.
Play for him
because it didn't work out the first time. Yeah, remember this about Justin Fields. He did come on later in the year last year and was a very competent quarterback. Obviously, they gave him DJ Moore. He had a legitimate wide receiver. They have started to put some more talent on the field on both sides of the ball to their credit. But he also, in a pass-happy league, has not thrown for 3,000 yards in a season, and at some point, you better if you're going to be a legitimate quarterback in this league. All right, next one. Patrick Mahomes will win at least 5 Super Bowls before it's all said and done. He's at 3 now. Will he or won't he?
He will, Craig. 28 years old. He's on a faster pace than Brady. You talk about this young defense at $23 million underneath the cap. They have everything they want. Now, obviously, you got to go get number 1 receiver, but I can see him hoisting 2 more Lombardis.
And don't forget, he's got 3. Brady's got 7.
Yep.
Bradshaw's got 4.
Correct.
He's not the only one with 4 because Joe Montana's got 4 too. Will he or won't he, Plax?
How you doing today? You doing all right?
Hungover. He's hungover today. Yeah, he's not.
He will.
He will.
He will win 3 in a row. And then he'll get to 5, and then he'll get to 7, maybe even 8. Wow. So I'm gonna say this guy's gonna go down as the best quarterback to ever play in the National Football.
Okay, listen, he's on the right trajectory. I
wish he was my quarterback.
You had Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning.
He's a little better.
He's a little better. By the way, people want to know on Twitter right now, since we're talking about Patrick Mahomes, we know he famously is a Bud Light drinker at these celebrations. What was the drink of choice for you guys at yours?
Tequila, Patron.
Patron for you, and how about you there, Plax? You remember?
I don't remember.
Good. But sounds like a good time.
It was wet, though. I know that. All right, next one. Here we go. Mike McCarthy will be fired mid-season next year. Oh, will he or won't he?
No, I don't see him getting fired. For him to get fired, the Dallas Cowboys have to be a dumpster fire of a team next year. I don't see that happen.
Okay, how about you, Plax?
No, he will be fired.
He will be fired during the season.
He will be fired because I just don't think that adding Mike Zimmer to be this defensive coordinator, that it makes them a better team defensively than what Dan Quinn did.
You guys had this wrong. This is how it works, Plax. They play really well during the regular season, and then they blow it all up in the first round of the playoffs, and then you get fired. That's a Cowboy way.
Yeah, they would have to start off like 1-4, 1-3,
Yeah,
1-5.
really bad.
And by the way, if they do, I'm with Plax. That he ain't seeing Thanksgiving if they get off to a slow start. Or God forbid, the New York Giants, beat them. They usually play like the first week of the season. Or the Commandos suddenly look confident. If they're in, it could happen. It could happen.
Jerry Jones always has a plan.
It could happen. All right, NBA. LeBron James will be a Laker next season. Will he or won't he?
He will. LeBron's not going nowhere.
Player option.
I don't see him going anywhere. His son's at USC. He has a big production company. He is Hollywood at this point. I don't see him going anywhere. He's going to try to figure it out.
Interesting that all that talk about Bronny James being an NBA player is quiet since he can't play college basketball. Much like I told you, wasn't very good in high school either.
Watch the USC game.
Oh, he will. Me and Dave had this conversation yesterday. What else is he going to do? I mean, let's just be honest. He's LeBron James. He's going down as being one of the best to ever do it. He's always said that he has wanted to finish his career in Cleveland. I don't believe you exit Los Angeles to go back to Cleveland.
No one has ever done that.
Ever.
To finish your career. So he will be a member of the Los Angeles.
All right, Jacoby, you want to jump in on that real quick?
He wants every penny of that $59 million. What I want to see happen is him to lead the Lakers. I do not believe he is a Laker next year because they have no chance to win a championship with the current roster the way it's constructed. And he's going to leave, and I want to see him sign for a veteran minimum. I want him to take
like that
veteran minimum.
He's got $60 million coming his way.
I would love to see him say, you know what? I just want to win a championship. I'll sign for the veteran minimum.
Well, that'd be the only way New York would ever accept him, and I don't want him. All right, last one for you real quick. I'm going to give you my answer before I give you the question.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to write it down. Okay. Yes. Okay. I wrote it down. I'm on record. There you go. I'll show it to you after. Aaron Rodgers will lead the Jets to the Super Bowl next season. It says playoffs. You can cross that out.
Oh, yes.
I just write Super Bowl.
Yeah, been a mistake
because the playoffs ain't enough. It's the Super Bowl. Oh,
the
will
playoffs
he?
aren't enough.
The playoffs are not enough, Plaxico Burress. We need to make it to the playoffs. We need to win a couple playoff games. We need, as a bare minimum, the AFC Championship game.
Oh, no.
And I want a Super Bowl appearance. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, will he? Or will he? Or will he? Or will he?
He will.
Yeah! Yes! I'm having a great day. Plaxico? No!
He won't. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The New York Jets will win the AFC East.
Oh!
They'll have home field advantage, and they will run into the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium for the AFC Championship game. and Patrick Mahomes will take them down.
You know what? That sounds pretty good.
That
sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good if you're a Jets fan.
That's just what's going to happen. Right that
That's
day.
not bad.
I'm going to sign on
There
that.
you go.
You're a Jets fan. That's
I'm in
pretty
the
good.
AFC Championship game.
You're in the AFC Championship game.
They haven't been in the playoffs in
Jets lose to this guy again.
By the way, I might say yes to that.
Not bad.
You'll take it, though, won't you?
Yeah.
You damn right. I'll take it.
all right.
Although I'm signing up to lose, which I'm a loser. That's what we do. Anyhow, good job, fellas. We got one more segment coming your way. We'll give you all the headlines, and obviously, as much as we are having a good time here this morning, as we do it with heavy hearts this morning, understanding the magnitude of yesterday's tragedy in Kansas City. We'll give you the latest update on that right after this on FS1.
Welcome back to the Carton Show. Tragedy in Kansas City yesterday at the end of the Super Bowl parade. There was a mass shooting incident. Right now, what we know is there is one person that has passed away. Multiple people are injured. Multiple people are in critical condition. This is the 48th shooting event that involved 4 or more victims in this country so far this year. Craig, what is your reaction to the tragedy in Kansas City?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. A bunch of innocent people there trying to enjoy their slice of Americana, something that we've gotten, grown accustomed to every year. The parade to mark a championship in every sport, not just, of course, the Super Bowl. Super Bowl usually being the biggest one, though. These guys have been a part of parades. I've covered parades and, hosted them on TV over the years here in New York City, and your heart bleeds for obviously the family of the DJ that was killed, the young woman who was on the radio out there in Kansas City, who was a mom of 2 who lost her life. You have 8 other folks who were shot, who are in a serious and critical condition, trying to survive their injuries at local hospitals. And watching like the rest of America did, it's heartbreaking. And you feel for the people, nearly 1 million of them, that went out to what was supposed to be a fun, joyous occasion, celebrating their football heroes, winning their 2nd consecutive Super Bowl, and all the great things that come along with it. Kids playing hooky from school, guys and gals not going to work that day, and companies shutting down so their employees could enjoy, as I keep saying, this slice of, the American life. And at least 2, maybe 3 different gunmen, we don't know a lot about them just yet, who were apprehended. 2 by the police, 1, as we now have seen the video, by a couple random folks who were at the parade looking to celebrate, heroes for sure, that tackled the alleged shooter, got the gun away from him as you watch this video right now. And my reaction is, these are those moments where fandom gets put aside and we're all one. We're all Americans, whether you're black, white, whomever you are, wherever you come from. And I think the obvious reaction is one of anger, 1, sadness, 2, and hope, 3, that those who are injured, that are fighting for their lives in local hospitals in Kansas City, win that fight and come through it and ultimately are okay. And the one thing we don't talk a lot about now are, the emotional damage that's done to people who are at the parade, who may have heard the bullets and been close to one of these 21 or 22 victims of this shooting. It'll never make sense, whatever the cause is, whatever the I'm pissed at the world nonsense is that leads people to do these things. There is no sense to be made out of it. There's anger. And there's now a reaction that we can't have these things happen over and over and over again and act surprised when they do happen. There have been more mass shootings in this country than days of the year thus far in 2024. And I don't want to get on a soapbox and talk about gun control and all that, because each state votes and comes up with their own rules. And, in Missouri, you can conceal without a permit. Yep. You can be convicted of a violent crime and still, get a gun. And, they've decided that's what works for them. And none of us are in a position to tell them what should work better for them. But when you watch what took place yesterday, once again, a little bit of us gets robbed because I don't know if I can go to a parade. I don't know if I can go to mass gatherings of people, not knowing is today the day that some lunatic group or person is going to make a name for themselves by hurting innocent people. And I'm very saddened by it and feel terrible for the people that were at that parade.
Yeah, you're spot on, Craig. For me, when you wake up that morning, you put on your jersey, you put on your Patrick Mahomes jersey on your kid. I talked about yesterday how when I was going down the boulevard and selling my Super Bowl, seeing a guy hold the baby up with the Troy Polamalu wig, right?
Yeah.
And that was it right there. That little baby he probably didn't even watch the damn game, but his dad was proud. His dad was proud to have him be a Steeler fan as well. But you're talking about doctors who pretty much took in 11 kids who all walked in that hospital with bullet wounds, right? You're talking about children with gunshot injuries and at a parade, at a football parade to celebrate a Super Bowl. So it's frustrating. It's confusing because, to your point, how do you wake up that morning make up that morning on a Tuesday rather and realize you want to cause that type of damage? You talk about the young lady that lost her life. Like, she had kids.
Yep.
Her kids are thinking to him, mom is going to kind of celebrate this parade and have a day, and mom's not coming home because some selfish bastard decided to take life.
Sports is part of the public trust. I've said that a lot of times. And Kansas City, as much as any middle America city that is in love with its respective sports heroes, is emblematic of that. And yesterday should have been one of the great moments, in Kansas City, much like it was a year ago. You guys have experienced that in Pittsburgh, obviously with the New York Giants. And at no point do you ever think, hey, let me just look over my shoulder. Hey, I got to worry about it. And there's nothing more, kind of shocking that brings you right into reality when you start seeing videos of people running for their lives, and then you see pictures and video of snipers on roofs of buildings, because in the moment, the folks that represent us with law enforcement, they have no idea what's going on. They're reacting to it the way we're reacting to it. They don't know. And I thought they did a great job yesterday. That is their job, to run into harm's way. But the two or three gentlemen and the wife of one of them who decided to put themselves in harm's way by tackling one of the alleged gunmen are heroes and should be treated as such.
I mean, listen, as a player, for every player that's in this league, you want to reach the pinnacle of the sport, not just for the Super Bowl and the ring, and to call yourself world champions, is because you know what, you want to be accompanied with a parade, and that's kind of the cherry on the top of the hard work throughout the season, and being a world champion. And now from an emotional standpoint, just like Willie said, he can remember waking up as a kid and wanting to go to the parade for the Yankees, and those are memories that everybody's going to have. And the families and the kids. So now you move forward, fast forward to next year, and whoever wins the world championship, and now one of those kids in whatever city this championship parade is happening, he looks to his mom and his dad and say, I don't want to go to the parade today because of what I saw happen last year in Kansas City. And I think that's the mental hurdle and emotional damage that has done to not only the city, but to everybody that was there, and for everybody outside looking at it. That's what it has done to everybody.
Yeah, listen, the next parade of this kind will be the NBA parade, whoever wins the NBA championship this year. You remember the Denver parade last year? Everything was supposed to be, and this parade, up until it wasn't, was everything that we have come to expect. And hopefully this senseless act of violence will not change the fact that this is how we celebrate our local teams winning championships. Obviously, once the news kind of came out and guys had an opportunity to catch their breath, a bunch of guys, obviously, that play for the Kansas City Chiefs, including the NFL and the Hunt family, came out on social media. You, of course, Travis Kelce, who was feeling no pain at all, celebrating the win during the parade, said, I'm heartbroken over the tragedy that took place today. My heart's with all who came out to celebrate with us and have been affected. KC, you mean the world to me. Patrick Mahomes, very simple one line, praying for Kansas City. His wife, Brittany, made the point of saying, the celebration of Super Bowl wins will be forever changed now because of what happened here. The NFL put out a statement, as did the Hunt family, obviously saying all the appropriate things about, saddened by, the senseless act of violence that occurred outside Union Station at the conclusion of today's parade and rally. NFL statement, same thing. Thoughts are with the victims and everyone affected. And this does go beyond just those who are physically hurt. There's an emotional trauma here as well. as I said earlier today, sometimes these things do hit closer to home than others. Our colleagues who are on the air 3 p.m. Eastern every day, Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds, and Chris Broussard, first things first, were at the parade celebrating the Chiefs' victory. Nick, as you guys all know, is a huge Chiefs fan. I reached out to him yesterday. Of course, they were all shaken by it. They were evacuated, as many people were, as quickly as possible from the parade route and sequestered safely in a hotel somewhere in downtown Kansas City, but have all safely gotten out of Kansas City and have flown back to New York, and they will be on the air today. And I'm sure their first-person accounting of what happened yesterday will be must-see TV, again at 3 o'clock this afternoon Eastern Time, right here on FS1. And now, listen, life does go on, as hard as that is to imagine for all of us, and we have to do our jobs, but we do that acknowledging that there are still 21 other people in local hospitals in Kansas City trying to recover from their wounds, and collectively, we of course send out all of our thoughts and prayers to them and all of their families. Jacoby?
There's tragic news in Kansas City, but that's not the only news in sports. We have some news from the 49ers. Fresh off of the overtime Super Bowl loss, Niners head coach Kyle Shanahan spoke about the decision to relieve their defensive coordinator Steve Wilks of his professional duties. Here's Shanahan on the decision.
And bringing in Steve, who was unbelievable, and how loyal he was, and him trying to do it, but it just ended up not being the right fit. And it's like, it hurt for me to do this, but that's exactly why I had to.
So, Craig, hearing from Shanahan and seeing this firing after they went to the Super Bowl, what does it tell you about what's happening in San Francisco?
Well, a few things. It tells me there was a disconnect between these two guys much longer than just Super Bowl week. And also, he takes ownership of it. This wasn't an organizational decision. This wasn't a John Lynch decision. Kyle Shanahan's telling you, I made this decision. And we should have known there was something brewing all the way back in October of this past year. They lost that game to the Minnesota Vikings. If you remember, it's the game that Brock Purdy got concussed in and threw 2, if not 3 interceptions in this game. But it's how the game ended. Should have been an interception there by San Francisco, but it wasn't. And, they didn't like the defense that they called at the end of the first half and later in the game. Shanahan spoke after the game about his dissatisfaction with the defensive game plan against Minnesota. Listen to this.
He knows he messed up on that call. I have no problem with 0 blitzes, especially when people need a lot of yards. If you need to get 20 yards to kick a field goal, I have no problem with the 0 blitz. But I do when there's 16 seconds left, and that's where he lost track.
Yeah, so he's thrown his coach under the bus. We talked about it during the year here, so that's just kind of a flashback to there being an obvious disconnect. And then you go to the Super Bowl itself. Now, look, we could tell you that it wasn't the defense that lost them that Super Bowl. You have the muff punt. You have the fumble by McCaffrey. You have the offensive line not blocking Chris Jones on the 3rd down play. You've got a lot of places you can look if we're looking to place blame on not winning the Super Bowl this past Sunday. But there's also the situation in overtime, Kansas City driving. They're on the San Francisco side of the field. It's 2nd and, I think, 6 or 7. And all of a sudden, you see Kyle Shanahan, right here's the play, 2nd and 6, in OT. Wait a minute. That's the defense we're running? And he calls timeout. Obviously, you got the 5 guys in the secondary. You got the 6 guys up by the line of scrimmage. Shanahan calls timeout. Now, I want you to watch this video. Go full screen on it. Watch this. He's MFing Wilks right there. He doesn't want you to see him. He's like, son of a... What kind of defense are we calling here? So he doesn't like the defense, calls a timeout. They come out after the timeout in a true man-to-man defense. And Kansas City gets the first down anyway. And they, of course, go on and they score the touchdown. Okay, now let's go to Nick Bosa. Arguably their best defensive player and maybe the best defensive end, or certainly one of them, in the league. This is Nick Bosa after the game. The zone read got us a couple of times. We could have been more prepared there. You could stop it there, but go down to the bottom again. We could have been more prepared. That means your best defensive player and your head coach are both telling you our defensive coordinator is a problem.
Not only a problem, he's calling his mind. He's questioning his brain and his trust on the sideline.
Right.
To call the right play. So if you're Nick Bosa right now, whether you intentionally meant to do it or you meant to do it, you got the man fired. Because if you say that right after the Super Bowl, you're saying this man, I cannot be in his system because I don't trust what he's calling for us to be successful in the field.
And when Kyle Shanahan goes on the record and he says, he's not the right fit, that is the call that he's talking about.
Sure.
Because Kyle Shanahan would not call a defense at that particular time during the Super Bowl against a Patrick Mahomes. And it's a zero coverage. It's an all-out. We got to have it right now. And they made that similar play with MVS against the Baltimore Ravens in a zero coverage. But that's what he's talking about. And he says that, you know what, it hurt me to do it, but that's exactly why I had to fire him, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, now you've got Kyle Shanahan, and now he's officially on not the same hot seat that Robert Saleh's on, but now there's pressure on you. Because if you just made him the scapegoat, all right, kid, whoever you bring in now to be defensive coordinator, it's going to be your guy. We're going to let you bring him in. But now there's no more excuses. Now San Francisco has to win the Super Bowl. Appreciate you joining us. To everyone in Kansas City, thoughts and prayers from all of us here at FS1. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.